Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
Just how scary can the Pittsburgh Steelers be in the AFC? Also, the Heat have been lukewarm to begin the season, and the Chiefs and Dolphins get set for a showdown in Germany. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
If you want to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, maybe don't be winning in the fourth quarter, because that seems to be the only way the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to win this year. A 92-yard drive culminating in a touchdown to take what ended up being the game-winning points, a 20-16 win over the Tennessee Titans at home for the now 5-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. And they win another game coming back from behind late in the second half. Chris Carter was there. He saw it all. And Chris, let's be honest, there was not much to see for a lot of this game, but Pittsburgh keeps coming back at the end to win. How are they doing it?
I don't know, Peter. I'm tired of I'm saying, okay, they're going to expand this. They don't expand it, and they just keep turning it on in the fourth quarter. Kenny Pickett missing wide open guys most of the game. George Pickens wide open on a crosser. If he hits him on it, it's a 50-yard gain because he's got nobody in front of him. It's inexplicable. He turns into, I don't know, Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter. It's stupid. He all game long, he has a pass rating of 88 or something like that. In the fourth quarter, it jumps up to 129. And that's been all season. He keeps finding ways to do this. And, I keep looking at things and I'm like, man, his mechanics are bad here. In the fourth quarter, it's like all of that goes away and he keeps finding a way to win. I believe that was his 7th game-winning drive of his career and his 5th or 6th fourth quarter comeback. It's ridiculous. And he still hasn't even played 2 whole seasons. He's barely played a whole season when it comes to total starts. It is an enigma right now how the Steelers keep doing this. I will say this, though, that the second half adjustments by the Steelers defense were huge. They admitted in the locker room, they talked to us after the game. They said, hey, we had communication breakdowns in that first half that opened up the paths for Will Levis. The Steelers defense, yet again, and they've done this a few times this year now, come out in the second half and play a lot better football.
Yeah, Kenny Pickett through the first 3 quarters is Joe Dirt. In the fourth quarter, he's Joe Montana. I don't know how to explain it, but that's exactly what's going on. In this Pittsburgh Steelers backfield, Chris, I want to talk to you about this a little bit because Jaylen Warren was a guy that got a lot of fantasy football hype in the preseason, and he has started to, over the last month, live up to a lot of that hype. 11 carries for 88 yards in this one. I'm not great at math, but that seems like a pretty good yard per carry average. After Deontay Johnson, he was also the second leading pass catcher in this game. It seems like, hey, if you want to play better in the first 3 quarters, get the ball to Jaylen Warren. That seems like a pretty good option here. How has he been an impact player for them so far?
He's such a change of pace from Najee Harris. That's the thing. Najee Harris had a good game too. 16 carries, 69 yards, not 8 yards per carry, but 4.3. Nice. And a big chunk of that came on at the end of the game when they kind of just handed it off to him. The Titans knew it. He lost 5 yards. So, that kind of stepped in there. But Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris I've been saying all year, are going to be a serious 1-2 punch if the Steelers offensive line figures it out. And I think that's a big part of this too, right? Jaylen Warren will get more involved with the Steelers. They love mixing him and Najee Harris up. But the Steelers offensive line, I gave them their worst marks of the season against the Jaguars. They got bullied in the run game, the pass game, everywhere. This game, it reversed. And what might have been the difference was Broderick Jones, the rookie offensive tackle they took in the first round, starting at right tackle, which is a bit of a switch because it had been Dan Moore Jr., who he was supposed to replace at left tackle. Chuks Okorafor, one of the highest paid members on this team and who hasn't lived up to the billing at right tackle, had been very mediocre to below average. They pull him out of the game. Broderick Jones goes in at right tackle. They have him pulling up the middle, pulling around the side, lead blocking everywhere, and it just changed the tone. If the Steelers offensive line can play like this in more games, it will change the tenor of this offense and the usage of these running backs to get more and more touches throughout a game.
How much has some of these late wins made you a believer in Tennessee's ability to at least put a scare in some teams in the AFC so far?
I think the biggest thing is you see Will Levis's arm and you're like, whoa. like that, you can do stuff with that. Traylon Burks took a really crazy injury. I saw him on the stretcher. He was still pinned down to it when they were taking to be looked at. That was extremely scary. I hope that we hear some good news about that soon. But I mean,
did give us the thumbs up, luckily.
He did give you okay, cool. I was in the tunnel. I just saw him coming in after the fact. So I'm glad to see that there was a thumbs up there. But I thought Will Levis, there were a lot of times the Steelers were hitting him, and he kept focused. Sure, he threw a game-losing interception.
10 QB hits in this one for the Steelers.
Oh, my gosh. They just kept coming. Alex Highsmith, I think, had 8 pressures in this game. He's tied with Michael Parsons with having the most 7 pressure games in the NFL right now, which is insane considering T.J. Watt's also on the Steelers. But I think the biggest thing from Will Levis that I saw was that he showed toughness. He showed his cannon arm. If they can keep developing him, he's still a rookie. This was just his second start. I think that Tennessee might have something there. I liked his moxie there. Still has to finish games better. That's something we saw in college too. But by and large, I liked what the Titans got out of Will Levis tonight.
To date all year on the Pittsburgh Steelers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Steelers on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Heat are not exactly hot to start the season. Before we get to what ails them, the Raiders are embracing a new vibe. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets back with any $5 money line bet that wins. That's $150 if your team gets the dub. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app, easy to use. A wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Take a look at this weekend's slate in college football. It's Bedlam, baby. Oklahoma travels to play Oklahoma State. FanDuel has the Sooners 5.5-point favorites. Wonder what Mike Gundy feels about that one. He's a man. He's 40 after all. You can also combine bets for a bigger parlay, combine multiple money lines, or create a single same-game parlay with multiple prop bets, parlays. Make sports watching that much more fun. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and do the NFL season right. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. New music on the speakers, a mini hoop, and wrestling matches with offensive linemen all marked a new feeling in the Raiders locker room after they cleaned house earlier this week. When asked about it, Davante Adams said, "I think that's kind of the mindset we're having. We're just trying to have fun and enjoy our time in this building because I think as we speak to each other, it's been too much of, this has just been feeling like work too much and not enough fun." Interim head coach Antonio Pierce is also getting ready for his first game as a head coach with the newly minted starting quarterback, rookie Aiden O'Connell. Perhaps the most precise description of the change in energy in the Vegas locker room came from wide receiver Hunter Renfrow. "We're not walking on eggshells everywhere." The New York Giants are signing kicker Randy Bullock to the practice squad with Graham Gano set to undergo surgery on his left knee. Gano has been dealing with the problem for several weeks in that knee and was trying to kick through it. He missed 2 field goals in Sunday's 13-10 overtime loss to the New York Jets, including a 35-yard attempt in the final minute. Ugh. Coach Brian Daboll said after the game he thought Gano was all right and the team felt comfortable with his health. The Magic and Jazz got together for a basketball game in the mountains.
Are we done worrying about Paolo Banchero yet? Well, it's just one game, but the Orlando Magic are coming home with a 115-113 victory over the Utah Jazz, thanks to Paolo Banchero. The game-winning basket with, 9 seconds left in the game, delivering for this Orlando Magic team with 30 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. We'll ignore those 6 turnovers for now. 9 for 13 shooting, a tremendous amount of free throws. This is the game the Orlando Magic have been waiting for from Paolo Banchero as he struggled through the early part of the season. But more importantly, it's a win. It's a win where the Magic had to execute late, which they struggled with for the majority of the time, but they got the one basket they needed. Paolo delivered with a killer move into the paint to finish over John Collins with his left hand, the kind of stuff that superstars do. Paolo finally looked like the star. The Magic know he can be. The Magic know they need him to be. And Orlando's coming home with a 3-2 record before this upcoming homestand.
And the players have decided. Atlanta right fielder Ronald Acuna Jr. was voted Player of the Year and the National League's Outstanding Player by fellow Major Leaguers in the annual Players' Choice Awards of the Major League Baseball Players Association. Los Angeles Angels designated hitter and pitcher Shohei Ohtani was voted the American League's Outstanding Player. The Union said on Thursday, Acuna became the first player with 40 homers and 70 stolen bases in a season. He hit almost 340 with 41 jacks, 106 RBI, and 73 stolen bases. No player previously had 40 homers and 50 steals in a season. He blew past that stolen bases mark. And Shohei, another ridiculous year. That's just what he does. Ohtani hit 304 with 44 homers, 95 RBI, and 20 stolen bases. Plus, just to add on to it, he went 10-5 with a 3.14 ERA, 167 strikeouts in 132 innings. He is set to also be the most desired free agent this offseason, and maybe the most desired free agent since Alex Rodriguez. I don't know. The Miami Heat have started slowly, 1-4, but this seems to be what they do. They just don't look great in the regular season, and then all of a sudden they're in the Eastern Conference Finals or they're in the NBA Finals, and everyone's going, wait, what just happened? Exactly. Wes Goldberg from Locked On Heat took us through this NBA Finals run that they just went on last season, and he joins me now. Wes, they didn't get Damian Lillard in the offseason. They lost a couple of key pieces, but Tyler Hero was supposed to come back reinvigorated. What's going on so far?
Well, so far they're out to a 1-4 start, and it hasn't looked great. Yes, the Heat have basically rendered the regular season useless for the most part, but they also didn't want to look like this. And to your point, I don't think they planned to look like this. I think that they were planning, even after that finals run, for a pretty significant roster shakeup, which ultimately did not happen. And so they kind of go this entire offseason just sort of waiting for the Damian Lillard thing to happen. It doesn't happen. And the next thing they know, they're basically returning the same roster minus key contributors like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent. They made some small additions. Your Josh Richardson here, your Thomas Bryant there. But this is a team that kind of ironically is relying on the guy that they almost traded, Tyler Hero, to take a major leap, for them to take a major leap. Even more ironically, I suppose, is the fact that Tyler Hero seems to be having taken that leap already, but Jimmy Butler has a right knee issue that's been bothering him. He does not look right. He didn't play at all in the preseason. He's already missed one of the games in Miami's opening week. And the offensive problems are still there. It turns out when this team isn't shooting like 45% from three-point range, miraculously, like they can't really score. It's the same issue as they had last regular season when they made the play-in tournament and barely made the playoffs at all. They look a lot closer to that team from last regular season than anything close to the team that made that miraculous finals run.
Yeah, and Jimmy Butler's emo hair not doing him any favors in all of the photos that they're putting up every time that they go out there. So what do you see with this team that you think can change so that it can be a little bit more like what we've seen years past? Because Miami fans will be the first ones to tell you, go look at the records. Go look at what has happened in the postseason. This team has been in the Eastern Conference Finals like basically every year for the last 5 years or whatever it is, 3 out of 4 years.
Yep.
So how can they get back to that?
It's a great question. They need to get healthy. They haven't had Caleb Martin for the whole season. We all remember how big of a factor he was in their run last year. Haywood Highsmith was another guy that they're relying on. He just got back into the rotation earlier this week. So once they get healthy, and then obviously once Jimmy gets healthy and this knee thing can be behind him, that's when maybe you can expect them to put something together here. The difference between the regular season and the playoffs is the playoffs last a lot shorter than the regular season. So this is a team that can get healthy for a little bit, but then they tend to not get healthy, right? Like somebody else will get hurt. This is sort of an older team. Jimmy Butler's 34, Kyle Lowry's 37, Kevin Love is 34. There's a lot of guys that are aging and asked to do a lot. And when you're asked to do so much, this is also a smallish team. When you're asked to do a lot like that, you tend to just get hurt, right? And so, yeah, this team will get healthy at some point soon, and then they probably won't be healthy. Somebody else will go down, and that's just sort of what happens with this team, kind of seemingly more than a lot of other teams. They led the league in injuries, or were near the top of the league in injuries, games missed last year during the regular season. But I don't know, other than getting healthy and then just making an insane amount of three-pointers. The good news for Miami is that they're 6th in the NBA right now in three-point percentage, although they're at near the bottom of the league in three-point attempts per game. So mathematically, I guess you could just say, well, just lift the 3-point percentage up,
just
get more of those going. Yeah. And there are good 3-point shooters on this team. It's much easier said than done.
Are we past the point of saying, hey, if Bam Adebayo takes a little bit of a step forward offensively, like that could really help this offense? Because it seems like that's a conversation we've had in the offseason, like 3 years running, maybe more. Mm-hmm. And we haven't quite seen that like, hey, I'm a superstar level change yet.
It might be too much to ask, only because he's being asked to do so much else everywhere else. He's basically anchoring this defense that has kind of deteriorated. But Jimmy Butler, like I already said, isn't healthy. They don't have Caleb Martin. They're just getting Highsmith back. But Kyle Lowry's 37. He's not the defender that he was when he was winning a championship in Toronto in 2019, right? Tyler Hero has his defensive limitations. They lost maybe their best defensive guys in that backcourt, and Max Strus and Gabe Vincent in the offseason. Like, there's a lot on his plate defensively. And then offensively, he's kind of the guy that needs to get them into their offense, right? Because again, Lowry is old. He's just not the guy that he once was. And so Bam kind of in a lot of ways is their point guard. So to ask him to do all these other things, and then also, by the way, can you go out and score 25 points per game? I just think is unrealistic, right? He's just not that player. He's not Giannis. He's not Jokic. He's not Joel Embiid. He's a top 15 player in my book, but he's not like an apex top 5 guy. And that's okay. I actually think it comes down to Tyler Hero. It comes down to Jimmy Butler, who has been atrocious to start this season. And then just a supporting cast that they may or may have not thought they were going to trade a bunch from, and just a bunch of these guys kind of stepping up too.
Stay up to date on the Miami Heat by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Chiefs and Dolphins are set for an NFL Oktoberfest. It's November, though. The NFL heads to Germany this Sunday. We'll be able to wake up, make some coffee, and watch Patrick Mahomes and Tua Tagovailoa do battle. Locked On Dolphins host Kyle Krabs and Locked On Chiefs host Chris Clark break down the matchup.
Miami's probably playing better football. Whether or not it shows up on Sunday is going to be a big question. It's going to be, can Kansas City's offense be consistent? If they can be consistent like they played against the Chargers, that's one thing. If they play anything like what they did in their losses, that's a completely different issue, and you're going to have huge problems against Miami's defense.
Well, that's how I think you're primed for a really good game when both hosts here on Locked On come on the show and they want to give the nod to the other team as compared to say, yeah, I host Locked On Dolphins. The Dolphins are going to win the game, and I host Locked On Chiefs, and the Chiefs are going to win the game. The offensive matchup should be outstanding. I think Miami has a great opportunity to showcase full strength defensively, what they have. Obviously, Kansas City. I hope everybody that is able to play does play, because you do want to test yourself against the best. And for a young team in Miami that's coming up, you want to showcase yourself against what Kansas City's got. You don't want to come out of that game and say, oh, well, they had guys down, and that's that helped us win the game.
Yeah, you never hope for injuries, and you always hope for health and to have the best games possible.
This is about as much fun as we're going to get to have this NFL season, and probably a playoff preview, but Europe makes things weird. This is happening in Germany, the time change, the travel, all that stuff. So yeah, would I want to predict a 38-42 kind of barn burner? Sure, I would. I don't think that's what's going to happen. And that's just because this is so weird that the NFL insists on having all these international games. I will say, though, this is one of the rare times we are exporting from the United States a terrific, terrific game. Usually it's like, oh, hey, Jaguars, Falcons, take that, London. And this is an awesome game. And finally, the Big Ten announced their brand new schedule with 18 teams next season. USC travels to face Michigan for its first Big Ten conference game, while UCLA has to travel cross country twice. The league did announce that any of the Pac-12 teams joining the conference would either get a home game or an off day immediately following a long trip east. This is weird. It's going to be weird. I don't know what else to tell you. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make them your second listen. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, how will the Dolphins fare in their newest elite matchup with the Chiefs? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
today.
Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.